With the basic structure of our report in place, thanks to the wizard, we now just need to fine-tune the spacing and arrangement of the columns. We can do this in the Report Layout view. In order to get to Layout view, if your report is already open, just come up here to the View button and press the bottom half and choose Layout view from the pop-up. Or if your report's not open, you can right-click on it in the navigation pane and choose Layout from here. A third option is to come down to the very bottom of your screen where we have the Layout button option down here on the status bar. However you do it, go ahead and just switch your view into Layout view. Now that I've switched my view, I can confirm which mode that I'm in by taking a look up here at the top of the menu bar. Now when I switched into Layout view, it automatically opened up this field list window. If yours did the same thing, feel free to just close it down. We're not going to use it in this movie. Now like Design View, Layout view will allow you to modify the structure and position of your report's elements. But it'll do so while allowing you to still see the real data in place, which is going to be helpful as we resize these elements. In order to resize one of our columns, for instance the check-in date column is a little too narrow, you simply need to click on the first element in the column, and that'll select the entire column. Then, I'll drag on the edge to make it a little bit wider. We'll do the same thing with the checkout date column here, and the charges column over here. Next, I want to rearrange my columns a little bit. So I'm going to grab the check-in date column here, and I'm going to click and drag it over here to the right so that it appears to the right-hand side of our names. Next, we'll scoot our names back over to the left. In fact, I'm going to make these names just a little bit narrower as well. I'll select the last name column here, and using the arrow keys this time, I'll nudge that over to the left. Then, when I get it into position next to the first name, I'll press the Shift key on my keyboard to select the first name, and then we'll move both of those together a little bit further to the left. Now that I've made some room, I can grab my check-in date. I'll again scoot that over here to the left. We'll grab the check-out date, and we'll move that to the left-hand side of the room number. Then we'll take the room rate and move it over to the left. The length of stay, we'll move that a little left. And that'll make room for our charges to fit on the page. Finally, we need to rearrange the labels that appear at the top of our column so that they line up on top of the data that they represent. This room name field one we're not going to need. It's pretty obvious that this Cambridge and Manchester is the name of the room. I'll go ahead and select it and press delete. And now that I take a look at Manchester down here, I see that this also needs to be a little wider. So I'll select it and make it wider. Next, we're going to take the check-in date field and drag it over so it lines on top of the check-in dates. We'll take last name and press delete to get rid of it, because I'm going to take this first name one and just double-click on it and just call it name. Now I can move that to the left so that it lines up on top of the name data. We'll make check-in date a little bit wider. We'll take checkout date, make it wider, and move it left. The room number we'll make a little bit wider. In fact, again, I'm going to double-click on it and just call this room. Now I can make it narrower so it'll fit on top of the column. The room rate, I'll double-click and just call this rate. And once again, I'll move it into position. Length of stay, I'm going to double-click and call it days. We'll move that into position. And charges, I'll make that a little wider and just call it charges instead of total charges. With a little more finesse, we can go ahead and get these into their final positions here. I'm going to change checkout date to just checkout. And check-in date, I'll double-click on that and rename it check-in. So with a little more fine-tuning, for instance, it looks like this check-in date dropped down a little bit, so I can nudge that up and make sure that they're all aligned vertically as well. With a little more finesse, we can get this into their final position. And when you're ready, go ahead and press the Save button up here on the Quick Access toolbar, or press Ctrl-S on your keyboard. That'll save the changes of our report design back to the navigation pane. So after a little bit of pushing things around on the screen, our report is in a much better state. We can switch into Print Preview mode to get a better idea of how the report will look printed out. And when I do that, it looks like my room numbers are still a little bit too narrow. So I'll press Close Print Preview. That's going to take me back into Layout View. And even though I can see the numbers here, I'm just going to make it a little bit wider. Once again, we'll switch our view to Print Preview, and that looks a lot better. And when you're satisfied with the results, just come up here and press the Print button to get your own paper copy.